Streaming is the future of music, and in this future, there are two main competitors, Apple Music and Spotify. And today's video is going to be a comparison between the premium versions of these two platforms, and hopefully, this video helps you make a more informed decision, or it helps you get a better understanding of these apps. And there's also YouTube Music, which I wanted to include in the comparison, but I do not have access to it right now. So I will just use the two biggest players, which is Spotify and Apple Music, so that you can see what these two streaming services have to offer. So let's not waste any time. Let's move on with the comparison. And starting off with Apple Music and Spotify, I want to disclose that I've been personally subscribing to Apple Music for a while now. So I might have an inherent bias towards that streaming service. So I wanted to just disclose that. And nobody's free of biases. So I felt like for the sake of transparency, I should say that in the beginning of this video. And I also have Spotify Premium here, which I don't use, but like this is my Spotify Premium only, but I mainly daily drive Apple Music. And that ends the intro. Let's start off with the first point of comparison, which is the UI. So the UI of Apple Music is a lot more condensed when it comes to information, and the UI of Spotify is a lot more modern. So it all comes down to what you prefer. I prefer Apple Music's condensed UI. It might look a bit dated, especially on the macOS and the Windows versions of Apple Music. But when it comes to the phone, I don't notice that big of a difference. So I am not a fan of Spotify's UI redesign, especially the sidebar. I don't think it looks good. The icons changing. I prefer the older look, but this is again very subjective. So if you like this, you like this. If you don't like this, you don't like this. It just comes down to that. I am a fan of Apple Music's UI. When it comes to UI speed, though, I can attest to the fact that Spotify is a lot more faster when it comes to just basic searches. So now if I were to search something very like let me just think of some random song. Okay, since Brothers in Arms is here, let me search Why Worry by Dire Straits. Yeah. And Why Worry? And I felt Spotify is a lot more faster, and that's what I've noticed, especially on phone. Also, sometimes when it just comes to searching, Spotify is a lot more faster. And for those people that appreciate that small amount of speed, Spotify does take the lead. And oh, that rhymed. And let's move on to sound quality, which some might regard as the most important thing between these two. And theoretically, and what I have noticed, Apple Music is better than Spotify, hands down. Now, whether it comes to, because Apple Music has lossless, that is audio without compression, and Spotify has lossy, which is audio with compression. Now, would you be able to tell the difference between these two? Realistically, no. But that's not the reason why I am saying Apple Music is better, because I just feel the music is better. I don't know if it's the case where it's my bias overtaking me, but I have some theoretical proofs to say that Apple Music is better. One, obviously the lossless comparison. Apple Music has a much higher quality when it comes to music. Basically no compression. Here the music you're receiving is compressed, but also Dolby Atmos audio, which is Dolby Atmos mixes are basically, instead of having music in stereo channels, it's in a higher channel. So it's in a more wider soundscape, in my opinion. And music sounds a lot more livelier, albeit a bit quieter with Dolby Atmos. And Dolby Atmos, the advantage is when I'm listening to tracks with Dolby Atmos, especially, so if I, just for the sake of comparison, if I were to search In My Life by the Beatles, and here In My Life, these older tracks, especially of the Beatles and stuff, they were all recorded in stereo. And when they were, mono, and when they were transitioned towards stereo, in cars, and like basically the instruments are on the left channel and the vocals are on the right channel. And if you're sitting in a car, it sounds really good. But if you're maybe using earbuds like me, which have really good stereo separation, you can notice that difference between the audio, and it sometimes gets really irritating. And here's where Dolby Atmos mixes fix it. It makes the music a lot more lively. Some mixes can be terrible, but some mixes can be really, really good. For example, Now, I don't know if this still has the Dolby Atmos mix up, but Life of a Dawn used to have, yeah, the Dolby Atmos, and it sounds really good in Dolby Atmos. So that's where Apple Music takes the cake when it comes to audio quality. And also the spatialized stereo option that comes with AirPods also makes it a lot better for tracks that are not in Dolby Atmos. But a lot of Apple Music's library is there in Dolby Atmos, which is mastered either by Apple or also I think the producers like Mike Dean did the mastering for Dolby Atmos for some of Travis Scott's songs and Don Toliver's songs and things like that, and even for the older versions of Yeezus. But yeah, a lot of teams curate this, but there's also ways you can mess up. So it's up to you whether you like Dolby Atmos or not. But overall, I would say even the lossy version of Apple Music somehow manages to sound better than Apple Music. That's my take on it. And while I'm talking about Atmos, I think there are a couple of other things I can also mention. Apple Music does have Apple Music Sing, which is a karaoke option. It's not there on macOS, it's there on Apple TV and iOS on select devices, which is the newer versions of Apple devices. And you can basically drown out the vocal audio and only have the audio, which is really, really nice. And if you're having karaoke sessions with your friends and things like that, it's a pretty cool feature to have. Now, if I were to just turn off Bluetooth for a second, yeah, for example, if you're listening to What Lovers Do by Maroon 5, maybe not the best selection of a track, but I think the song is quite good actually. And you can see the lyrics, maybe if I only turn off the blur, but the lyrics have a karaoke version. There's a white line that follows along the lyrics, and this bar will allow you to adjust the vocals of the band, and which is basically Adam Levine and SZA's voice. But yeah, you can adjust the vocals on a lot of tracks, which is really nice for those karaoke days you either have with your friends or maybe if you like karaokeing alone. But yeah, that's always a nice feature to have. So audio quality, Apple Music does take the lead. Let's move on to platform orientation and algorithm. I want to keep this as short as possible. So Spotify is playlist oriented in my opinion. A lot of the way music is transferred between each other is through the form of playlists, and Apple Music not so much. This comes down to the way users interact with each other also on Spotify and Apple Music. But I feel Apple Music is a lot more playlist oriented. When you just go to the homepage itself, it's either Apple Music curated playlists, not your friends' playlists and things like that, or not like bigger accounts playlists. It's mainly Apple Music's playlists, and these are like fixed playlists, or it's mainly albums. So as a person that enjoys listening to albums, I prefer Apple Music's album oriented platform, and Spotify is a lot more playlist oriented. So if you want to discover new music, this is definitely your avenue. And like I said, this Spotify UI, it's very jarring to use. I don't like the way like things suddenly pop up and things. Whereas in Apple Music, everything has its own space, which is what I like. And even the player looks better on Apple Music. And one thing I forgot to mention is this whole UI rating I'm giving, it's for laptop and phone. And Spotify is faster on laptop and phone because Apple Music takes a lot of time to load for some reason, because Apple Music is on the older iTunes platform. The algorithm is also better on Spotify. If you want to discover new songs, I would suggest Spotify over Apple Music. And Apple Music has this one problem where if you load a song and then you use autoplay, eventually you will run into that older song you clicked on, so, which is very, very annoying. Like if I click some song and then I have to listen to that song again, I get kind of annoyed. So that's just my take on the algorithm. And most people are happy with the Spotify algorithm. You get to listen to a lot of songs your friends are listening to inadvertently, and you get to listen to a lot of popular songs through Spotify. And on Apple Music, you feel like you're listening to the same set of songs again and again. And that's just one thing I've noticed. And platform compatibility, here's where Spotify takes the cake. You can obviously listen to it on a lot more devices like the Fire Stick and the Galaxy watches and things like that, basically the Wear OS supported devices. Those are the two devices that just come off the top of my head. And yeah, platform compatibility is a lot more better on Spotify than Apple Music. Although both of them have their own websites and stuff, Spotify definitely takes the lead. Now moving on to another important thing, which is casting. Again, here's where Spotify takes the lead. Spotify has better casting. You can cast it to transfer it from one device to another device. On Apple Music, it's very limited, where I can only transfer from my Mac to my, from my iPad to my Mac, or my phone to my Mac, but I can't do the reverse. On Spotify, I can do the reverse. I can maybe transfer it to my watch. I can transfer it to my Google Home. On Apple Music, I can only do that with AirPlay devices. And if I want to listen to it on my Google Home, I have to go and tell the Google Home. So casting is not that great on Apple Music. And I think that's the one big downside of Apple Music. But yeah, so if you want to transfer songs between devices, this is the one feature to get Spotify specifically for. And Apple Music has this car share play feature where all the people in your car, they don't need to have an iPhone, they don't need to have an Apple Music subscription, can scan a specific QR code and they have control over the music in the car. So kind of like a remote, I would say, and they can search for songs, they can add it to the queue. This feature is a bit buggy. It hasn't worked well at times, but when it works, it's a really nice feature, and I have to applaud Apple for that specific feature. But overall, casting, Spotify definitely. Multi-user interactions. Users have interact a lot better on Spotify. That's just my take. Whether just seeing what your friends listen to, you can just see what your friends listen to in this friend activity thing. Whereas here you can't. You have to go specifically to the user's account and see what they listen to. Let's just go to Athar's account for the sake of this, and you can see he's been listening to Shreya Ghoshal, but you can't just see that specific song. Whereas here you can do both of those things in Spotify, so that's cooler. And in Spotify you can make jam sessions between multiple people. So if you're maybe listening to music with people across the world, or they don't even have to be in your room, the jam feature is really, really nice, which Apple Music does not have. And I think that's also one big downside of Apple Music. And not just that, you can create mixes with your friends and things like that. Here you can have collaborative playlists, and there's one fixed friends playlist here, which updates once a week. And like I said, the platform orientation, Apple Music has very limited playlists, but they do have stations, but they have very limited playlists. So it's mainly album oriented. Here it's playlist oriented. So that comes down to you. But overall, multi-user interactions, again, Spotify takes the lead. But that's all. It all comes down to how important that is for you. It isn't important for me. I don't really care that much what my friend is listening to. If I really wanted to know, I'd just directly ask them. But jam sessions, that's really nice. On Discord, you can just listen to it with your friends and things. And those things, I would admit, it's really nice. That's probably the only reason I have Spotify downloaded, apart from podcasts. And yeah, one more thing is Apple Music does not come with podcasts in the app. You have to use the podcast app, and Spotify comes with podcasts in the app, which can be a bit obtrusive for some people, but I like podcasts being in the app. I have no problem with that because I listen to podcasts and I feel this helps my discovery. Now, the other point I had mentioned was offline or unreleased music. You can upload your music to Apple Music and Spotify, but with Apple Music, the difference is you can access it on any device. So Logic has a Twitch tape that he had released free for public to use, and I really like the music there, even though it was instrumental. So I uploaded it and I listen to it now, and I can basically listen to it on any device, which is not the case on Spotify because Spotify, you can upload it and it'll only remain locally. So if I search here, Twitch tape, spelling mistake, Twitch tape, yeah, I can access it on my iPad, iPhone, Android phone, and everything because synced. So that is very, very nice, a really good feature in Apple Music, which I like. And also because it's based on the older iTunes platform, you can basically customize anything about a song, which is also very, very nice. You want to add credits to a song, really cool. You want to change the lyrics of a song, very cool. So you can, all those cool features are there in Apple Music, which are not specifically there in Spotify. And to give you a good example of this, I like listening to Malayalam music, but I don't necessarily know Malayalam, right? So what I can do is I can just go to Get Info and I can add my own lyrics. I can upload my own artwork. This is not custom artwork. And you can also see the people who made the song. You can maybe change the genre. You can maybe move around the album based on your liking. And those are really, really nice features of Apple Music. To give you a good example of this, the Richard D. James album by Aphex Twin. Richard D. Okay, I can just search Aphex. Yeah, here. And if I go to Aphex Twins official page, you can see that the actual album art is quite different, because I didn't like seeing that face again and again. I just changed it. So you have all that control over your music on Apple Music, which is really, really nice. So that was one feature I wanted to say is the biggest plus of Apple Music. If you like maybe live performances, you can load up the video on Apple Music, add it as a part of your album or your playlist. That's those beautiful things you can do in Apple Music, which you can't necessarily do in Spotify. But you can listen to your friends' music. It can give you mixes between your friends' taste and your taste. So we heard there are collaborative playlists in Apple Music, but you don't have features specifically like that. Now let's go on to the last thing, which is the pricing. I don't want to keep the video too long. And when it comes down to pricing, there is a difference. And Spotify is a bit more expensive when it comes to Apple Music, right? And you can see the pricing. And Apple Music is a lot more affordable, I would say. The student plan is what I'm currently subscribing. I used to use the individual plan for like 3 years, and then I decided to jump ship to the student plan. It comes with free Apple TV Plus, which is also, it doesn't have that many shows and stuff. It's only Apple Originals, but I guess for a freebie, I can't complain. Yeah, for a freebie, I can't complain. There are some good shows like Loot, and Shrinking was also quite nice. Then Ted Lasso was also really nice. The movie Tetris was actually really good. So the quality of the content is really high, and pricing wise, Apple Music does take the lead. But yeah, there are, like I said, each platform has its own advantage and disadvantage. So hopefully this video should have given you an idea on the different features between these two apps, and this video should have given you a clearer idea on what you should get for yourself. So personally, I would continue to stick with Apple Music because it's limited. Its specific features help me a lot, like the unreleased music and stuff like that. But if I were a part of a larger group and I wanted to do jam sessions and stuff like that, if I wanted to listen to music with others, I completely get why people would want to stick with Spotify. And that's the same reason why I have it downloaded. So ideally, just go through the feature set again and see what you guys like, and then stick with the platform that you guys like. And with that, I'll end this video. We'll catch you guys in the next comparison. Hopefully, we can make an update of this later down when there are more features, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. One more point that I forgot to cover is Apple Music has a lot of live stuff sometimes, a lot of live performances and videos, music videos by the artists, and Spotify doesn't do that. Apple Music relies a lot on live radios also, which Spotify doesn't do. I like those features of Apple Music also. And it's a lot harder to find an album in Spotify. It usually prefers playlists and songs. Like I said, playlist oriented. In Apple Music, that's the first thing you're going to find. So yeah, with that, I'll conclude the video. I'll catch you guys in the next one.